Are you spinning your wheels on low-value tasks? Do you spend more time putting out fires than planning for long-term goals? It's so easy to lose yourself and your daily momentum with little tasks that take you off focus. Here's the truth. Your time is too valuable to waste on pesky notifications, calendar invitations, and missed deadlines. Just because it all has to get done doesn't mean it needs to be done by you. That's where our friends at Belay can help. From administration to project management, a Belay executive assistant can handle it all so that you can spend your time on the tasks that matter. Because the first step to leading intentionally is reclaiming your focus. If you're looking for a practical tool to help you start leading with clearer purpose, download Belay CEO Tricia Sorrentino's free resource, the 40-Hour CEO Workweek Planning Guide. Just text the word exec to 55123 for your free copy. That's EXEC to 55123 to start accomplishing more while juggling less with Belay. Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Perry Holley, a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator and Coach.
And I'm Chris Goede, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining us once again. We are so grateful for those that are viewing us on YouTube or listening to us wherever you follow your podcast. Thank you so much. We are grateful for that. It's not a trip that Perry and I don't go on where people talk about the podcast and the impact on them personally or their team. And so we really appreciate
so
that.
Rewarding, so rewarding. Very kind. Yeah.
It's why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for that. I do want to let you know we have a new URL, and that is maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. There is where you can go and download the learner guide. You can leave a question or a thought that you want Perry and I to kind of unpack on a future podcast. You want to learn more about the 5 levels of leadership, please, you can do all that there. Submit that form and we will get back in touch with you. Well, today's topic, and I love the way that Perry has wordsmithed this. It says improving your micromanagement, which basically is saying that everybody does some sort of micromanagement, although a lot of us hear that word and we immediately go, man, that's negative. That just feels like I don't want to go be a part of anything that's micromanagement's over-controlling boss. They're all up in your business. And so there's another thing here that's big that we talk about, the 5 levels where you build trust with your team, which it's like, well, if you're micromanaging them, do you really trust them? Right. So what are we talking about here today? Like, you're getting creative on us, and I need to know kind of the context behind this, because and I know where we're going, it's all very, very true. I want to know how you came up with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll talk about what I read that got me on the topic, but then, and it so happens when I'm studying on something, it's probably like what I call availability bias. When I'm thinking about something, they just start showing up everywhere. Yes. But I had 2 separate senior executive leaders on coaching calls, 2 different days, comment to me that they, for one reason or another, they had to sit in for a leader that one of them, they let a leader go, and the senior was sitting in the junior leader's seat till they filled it. And the other one was, had somebody who was out sick and it was kind of bad, so they sat in for them. And both of them used the term, I was embarrassed by what I didn't know was going on in my organization with these leaders that, and I said, well, why didn't you know? And they said, because I don't want to micromanage. They're professionals. I didn't want to be in their space. I didn't want to act like I didn't trust them or something like that, but I didn't know what they were doing. And now I'm embarrassed that I got to go fix some stuff. I went, wow. And so they didn't use the word micromanage. That comes up in a minute. Right. But what do you think about not knowing what's going on in your own business you're forced to step in?
Yeah, I think that, that is an issue. You should be very aware of what's going on. I remember somebody saying to me one time, you can never not micromanage the outcomes of your business or the vision and the culture of your business. And so there are some areas that I think you are going to have to be dialed in order to drive the proper outcome or the proper culture or the vision that you want. In this example that you're just talking about with some execs that you've been working with, right? It was maybe they weren't in on the vision of what that leader they were filling in for was actually doing, right? Maybe the outcomes were there. And so that masked maybe some of the other things that you didn't see. And so it's really maybe being in proximity of it, more than micromanaging. I don't know. It's a delicate balance, but there are a couple things I think as leaders, whether it's your team, your family, or it's an organization, that you got to be dialed into and know what's going on in order to make sure we're headed in the right direction.
What spurred the thought was a new book. I'm a big Admiral William McRaven. I know you are as well. And Admiral McRaven's got several great books out. Anything by him is great if you can get a hold of that. But he's a Navy SEAL leader and has risen up through the ranks. But he's been in on some of the more well-known news articles over the last 10 years or so. He was his teams were in some of the worst things that we've seen. But he had his new book called Conquering Crisis. He had the chapter called Micromanagement is Not an Ugly Word. And he tells a story where he was briefing his senior leader, and the senior leader said, asked him some questions around how are they going to do this and how are they going to do that and what's going to happen if this and what. He goes, sir, I don't, he said he'd been reading the Harvard Business Review and the latest things about micromanagement. He said, so I threw it out there. He goes, sir, I don't micromanage my team. I trust them to do, I'm going to read it. They trust them to do their job and think they know what's expected of them. And the commander, he said, turns and faces him, gets right up in his grill and says, they know what's expected of them? How do they know? Have you cleared exactly what you expect? Let me be clear. I want you to micromanage these guys. I want you to look into every detail of the mission. I want you to question every aspect of their plan. I want you to double check their navigation, their communication, their insertion, extraction, their demolition, and the escape and evasion plan. And if you think anything can be done better, you should let them know precisely how you want it done. And then, like I said, 3 days later, I have two executives tell me, I thought they knew what to do, but they didn't. I'm embarrassed by what I don't know. So
and I think I love this example. And I know you sent me that book and you said, hey, this just came out. You need to make sure that you digest it. And so look forward to that. But what we're talking about here is clarity around expectations, clarity and understanding of the expectations. You and I had the privilege to be in a room several weeks ago now, and they talked about how if there's not clarity, it leads to confusion. And if there's confusion, then it's failure. And the story that you just talked about right there created all of that, right? Potentially, until the senior in charge there said, no, you're gonna know exactly, and it's gonna align with what you want from them. And so this is not about a kind of a trust or not trusting them. They're, in this case, extremely skilled at what they do. So it wasn't like you didn't trust them to complete the mission. It is, you need to be very aware and in the know, so that, let's just say one of them got sick, and let's say, not saying that he would, but Admiral would have had to step in. Did he know it that clearly that he could have been a part of the team and just filed right in? Or would they have to bring somebody else in that had been briefed on the mission? So it's around that clarity, and it's around the expectations and the communication. And then once all that's dialed in, like he said, once you know that, then okay, great, let them do their thing. But you better be in on the business on the front end of it.
Well, McRaven was told to be back here in 2 hours with the answers to all these questions. And when he went and got the answers, he realized there was a bit of confusion. There was a bit of, they hadn't thought through exactly the way he would have done it. Now he's a more seasoned senior SEAL commander. He knows things, but they are professionals. They are highly trained professionals, just like the people on your team are. So, but there's things he needed. So what it really says to me is that how can leaders ensure that their expectations are fully understood and executed on? And I personally feel like this is something you don't ever arrive. You're always getting better at this. But I wonder, obviously communicating clearly, concisely, like you said, those are big words. But maybe get practical. Is it more than that? What have you seen to make sure you lead a nice sized organization? You have lots of moving parts going on. You can't be everywhere, so you can't really micromanage. But how do you make sure that your expectations are understood?
Yeah, I love this comment you actually put here in the notes for me, which was, you talk about the why. Like let's start with why is it that you want to know? Why do you want to be in the business? But then also, why is it that what they're doing is so important to the business? And you kind of started from that level. The other thing is around communication. And we talked about this, I think it was just last week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, we mentioned that oftentimes Mark will say, after he has given kind of directive of what the mission is, what did you hear me say? Mm-hmm. And so I've begun using that. And so I've even, one of my teammates, we have a scale where we say, hey, now on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you feel about that? Are you clear about it? Like, give me a number. And if that number is below 8, it's like, sit down. Like, how do we get above an 8, right? So it's being willing to know as a leader that you may have not communicated something the right way. You may have not cast the vision and didn't give the right why behind that. The other thing is, I would encourage you, as you think about this, it actually made me think about the development model that we teach here. In this story with the SEALs now, Admiral McCraven couldn't go and perform right now. Mm-hmm. In this case, maybe he could have. He probably could have. But it's the whole,
met him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes. He probably could have. Yes. We talk a lot about the fact that as a leader, I want to make sure that I know how to do it. Now, you're not going to know how to do everything in your business, but at least, I know how to do it in this case. Then we talk about the fact that I'm going to do it and you're going to be with me. Like, this is my expectation. This is a simple model for some things that wouldn't work with all. And then we talk about, you're going to do it, I'm with you, and I'm just along for the ride to make sure that we're staying, expectations are right, you're doing it the right way, there's clarity, and then you're going to do it by yourself. And that's that transition. We always put on the end, then we want you to bring somebody with you. That begins to build a succession plan for every part of your business.
Right.
So I think there's a couple different things that you could think that's very practical that you could do there. That's not micromanaging them, because you're just trying to get them to a point, I think even in this story, to where the communication was clear, the expectations were clear, and oh, by the way, the leader knows what it is, and so do the people. And so when his leader came to him, he could right off just be like, this is, but he didn't have that answer because he wasn't in their business enough to know.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
I think about in their thinking, how are they thinking? And one thing, I learned this from Tim Elmore, and this is going to sound so simple, but it's so profound to me, was there's not micromanaging necessarily, but to make sure that I know how they see things. Are they prepared? How are they thinking? Was Tim said, learn to describe, don't prescribe.
Yeah.
And we talk about this a lot when dealing with the younger generations, but my generation loves to prescribe, tell you what to do. Here's the prescription. Do this, then do that, then do this and that. And they just go and do. They don't think about it. They just do what they're told. And nobody likes to be told. So Tim said, go to describe, don't prescribe. Describe what the outcome is. Describe what the picture looks like. Describe what and why we're doing it. And then let the team write the prescription about how we're going to do that. And I think this falls into McCraven's point about, and that applies to my two senior executives, was they just handed it off. I said, you're empowered, go. And they didn't do the handoffs like you said. Watch me do it. See, let me think how you're thinking. Let me hear what your contingencies are. What are you going to do if you get this? What are you going to do if you do that? We don't do that. We just say, you're a trained professional, go. And we don't support you. We don't follow up. And so McCraven learned it with the SEALs. I think my executives are learning it, but I like that. Describe, don't prescribe, and let's hear how they think.
Yeah. Like, I love that. Hear how they think. The other thing too is, it's the best idea that wins. And so you have an executive in this case, then you have a team. And as you're describing the end state, the KPI, the mission, and the brains that are in the room is like, this is the why, this is what we're going after, this is kind of initial what I'm thinking. Now let's talk about it. And you're describing it. And oh, by the way, it's going to hopefully walk out of the room with a much better idea. And by that way, also both parties, both the leader and the contributors are aware of what the plan is and what the steps are, so that if, in this case, Admiral was being questioned, he was in on the conversation, but he wasn't in there, to your point, prescribing the situation. So another best practice is to provide regular feedback and check-ins.
There's that word again.
There's that word again. We just spent the last 2 weeks, right, with Jeff Hatcher talking about feedback. Such good stuff. I encourage you to go back and listen to that. As leaders, sometimes we have a pattern of saying, okay, good, Perry, thanks so much. Go ahead and run with that, kind of like your executives. And then you have no idea. Like you're never asking for any updates. You're not checking in. You're not providing any type of constructive feedback because you have no idea what's going on, progress or not. And so this is a way, if you can get into a pattern, that you can make sure that everybody's in alignment, the standards of how you want it being done is the right way, and you can make sure that if anything comes up, you're not surprised by an issue. And that's the biggest thing for me, is that I want to be able to support the team in a way that I can remove obstacles or support any issues in a matter of a minute. But the only way for me to do that is to have some idea of what's going on. Had this happened just yesterday, as a matter of fact. One of my team members showed up and was like, we have a small problem. We have a workshop tomorrow and the materials are not there. Okay, but I was aware of the client. I was aware of the location. I knew it was in the funnel. We were able to talk through it. We were able to answer it. They gave me a little more context that I didn't have at the time. But it wasn't like I was like, what? We deliver training, and it's where, and who is the client, and when did they become a client?
You weren't embarrassed, right? But what you didn't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so I just think that it's key to make sure that you're continually checking in and giving feedback along the way. It also reminded me of a thing that we talk about here, which is, if you're not giving regular feedback and you get to the end of something, let's say end of a quarter, maybe it's a half a year. Unfortunately, it's at the end of the year, and you're giving some feedback about something that happened in February and they're surprised about it. That's your fault as a leader. And it's really doing nobody good, anybody good. It's not doing you any good as a leader, the organization, or the individual.
Well, and I'll let you wrap this up, but it just goes without saying, but let's say it anyway, that you've got to do, we talk about it a lot, the level 2 work of building relationships. Do you have you earned the right to maybe micromanage a little bit, to be a little closer to what's going on until you're absolutely sure the team fully understands the standard of operation and the expectations you have, and they can deliver and execute on what we've set before them. And it doesn't seem like micromanagement if you have built the relationship with me at level 2, and that I know that you're trying to help me, that you actually care about me, that I can trust you. All of a sudden, it just looks like you're another teammate to me, trying to make sure that we win.
That's
and
exactly
I think
right.
some of us get in trouble looking like micromanagers because we don't have any relationship to hang our hat on. We can't, he's in my business again. No, I want you in. I love it when you come to me and say, hey, I was looking at something. What do you think about this? How have you planned for that? I know, because I know you're trying to help me. I know you care about me. I know I can trust you.
Yeah. I think as I wrap this up, what I love about this is there are some things as leaders in our business that you need to micromanage. The individual itself, no.
Right.
That's not what Perry's talking about here, right? Like we're talking about everything, not everything else, but a lot of things around it. But it's not about micromanaging the individual. It's about micromanaging, as I mentioned earlier, the outcome of what we're trying to get to, and make sure you micromanage the culture and the vision of your organization. By doing that, you have to be in the know of what's going on. Maybe it's even as simple as you get daily briefs. I'm sure like the military does, or others, or weekly briefs. And hey, here's a synopsis of what's going on, where we're at, here's the challenges. Just so that if maybe your schedule is so busy and you have so many direct reports, that could be a problem, but that you get to a place to where you can't meet with them on often, but you're getting feedback, right? You're communicating with them. And so either way, the micromanaging is is a negative word, but it's not a negative word when it's tied to what's the purpose of what we're going after. Mm-hmm. If you're leading people by micromanaging them, that's a different story. Right. Perry is bringing us something a little bit different here in the spin on the micromanage, which I really like, because you need to be aware of and in your business to be able to move the needle. Things happen faster now than they ever have, and technology is changing things faster. Like, you better be aware of what's going on a daily basis so that you can course correct if need be. Yeah. Not the individuals, but the outcome and the vision of the company.
Fantastic. Thank you. And a reminder, if you'd like to get the learner guide for this issue, if you'd like to learn more about the 5 levels of leadership or our other offerings or our other podcasts in our podcast family, you can do all of that at maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. You can also leave us a comment or a question there. We love hearing from you and very grateful you spend this time with us. That's all today from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.